Hidden high above the forests of western Bhutan, where towering Himalayan cliffs rise above the Paro Valley and clouds drift silently across the mountains, stands a monastery that has quietly watched the passage of time for more than 300 years. Long before roads reached these mountains, before Bhutan opened its doors to the outside world, and before thousands of pilgrims and travelers began climbing these steep trails every year, this isolated sanctuary had already become one of the holiest places in the Himalayan kingdom. This is Taktsang Monastery, better known around the world as Tiger's Nest. Perched dramatically on the face of a towering granite cliff nearly 900 meters above the Paro Valley, Taktsang is one of the most famous Buddhist monasteries in the Himalayas. Every year, thousands of pilgrims travel across Bhutan to offer prayers at this sacred site, while visitors from around the world make the challenging climb simply to witness one of the most extraordinary monasteries ever built. Yet despite its worldwide reputation, Taktsang still feels remarkably isolated. Hidden among dense pine forests and protected by towering mountains, it remains surrounded by the same peaceful landscape that has sheltered monks for centuries. The journey to Taktsang is unlike visiting an ordinary monastery. Leaving the quiet town of Paro behind, the trail gradually climbs through forests of blue pine and rhododendron, where colorful prayer flags flutter between ancient trees, and the sound of mountain streams echoes through the valley below. As the path rises higher, the air becomes cooler, the forests grow quieter, and every step carries travelers farther away from the modern world. For much of the journey, the monastery remains hidden. The mountains conceal it completely, allowing only the surrounding cliffs and forests to fill the horizon. Then, almost without warning, the trees begin to open, and Taktsang finally comes into view. Clinging to the side of a vertical cliff, its white walls, golden rooftops, and traditional wooden windows seem to rise directly from the mountain itself. From a distance, the monastery appears less like a building and more like a natural extension of the Himalayan rock. Its location was never chosen by chance. For generations, these remote cliffs offered silence, solitude, and protection, creating the perfect environment for meditation and spiritual practice. While kingdoms rose and disappeared across the Himalayas, while trade routes changed and the outside world continued to evolve, life at Taktsang followed the same timeless rhythm. Monks gathered in prayer before sunrise. Sacred teachings were preserved inside quiet temples, and generations of Buddhist masters continued traditions that had shaped Bhutan for centuries. Today, visitors admire Taktsang for its breathtaking location, but the monastery is far more than an architectural wonder. Hidden behind its ancient walls is a story of faith, legend, and devotion that has inspired the people of Bhutan for generations. Every prayer hall, every stone pathway, and every cave reflects a history that reaches far beyond the cliffs on which the monastery stands. To understand why Taktsang became the spiritual heart of Bhutan, we must first explore the remarkable mountain that surrounds it. Because here, in the Himalayas, geography and faith have always been inseparable. The story of Taktsang Monastery begins with the mountain itself. Unlike many famous monasteries built beside ancient towns or along historic trade routes, Taktsang was established on a narrow granite cliff overlooking Bhutan's Paro Valley, more than 3,100 meters above sea level. Dense forests cover the mountains below, while steep cliffs surround the monastery from almost every direction, creating a landscape that has remained remarkably unchanged for centuries. The surrounding region is part of the eastern Himalayas, where thick pine forests, waterfalls, and rocky mountain slopes replace the barren landscapes found in many other Himalayan regions. During spring and summer, the mountains become covered with green vegetation, while clouds drift slowly across the valleys below. In winter, cold winds and snowfall transform the entire landscape, making the climb even more challenging for the few pilgrims who continue their journey. But Taktsang's importance was never based on its location alone. According to Bhutanese tradition, the story begins in the 8th century with Guru Padmasambhava, the great Buddhist master who introduced Vajrayana Buddhism to Bhutan and much of the Himalayan world. Ancient legends tell that he arrived at this mountain while riding on the back of a flying tigress, a journey believed to symbolize the victory of wisdom over fear and ignorance. After reaching the cliff, he entered a cave and spent months in deep meditation, blessing the mountain and turning it into one of the holiest places in Bhutanese Buddhism. It is from this remarkable legend that the monastery received its famous name, Tiger's Nest. For centuries, the sacred cave remained a place of pilgrimage, visited by monks who wished to meditate where Guru Padmasambhava was believed to have practiced. Then, in 1692, Bhutanese ruler Gyaltse Tenzin Rabgye ordered the construction of the monastery around the cave, transforming this remote cliff into a permanent center of prayer, learning, and devotion. Despite its dramatic appearance, Taktsang was never built to display wealth or power. Every temple, prayer hall, and wooden staircase was designed to protect the sacred caves that already existed inside the mountain. Rather than changing the landscape, the builders carefully adapted the monastery to the shape of the cliff itself, creating one of the most extraordinary examples of Himalayan architecture ever constructed. More than 3 centuries later, the monastery continues to stand exactly where generations of monks believed it was meant to be, overlooking the Paro Valley while preserving a tradition that has shaped Bhutan's spiritual identity for hundreds of years. But beyond its remarkable history, Taktsang remains a living monastery, where every sunrise begins another day of prayer, study, and meditation, continuing a way of life that has remained largely unchanged for centuries. While visitors remember Taktsang for its dramatic location, the true heart of the monastery lies beyond its cliffside walls. Long before the first rays of sunlight reach the Paro Valley, the monastery is already awake. The sound of traditional horns echoes across the mountains, calling monks toward the main prayer hall. Wrapped in deep red robes, they gather before sunrise to chant ancient Buddhist scriptures that have been preserved for generations. Inside the temples, hundreds of butter lamps cast a warm, golden light across centuries-old murals, while the quiet fragrance of burning incense slowly fills the rooms. For the monks, this is not a ceremony performed for visitors. It is a daily tradition that has shaped life at Taktsang for more than 300 years. After the morning prayers, the monastery gradually becomes a place of learning. Young novice monks spend much of their day studying Buddhist philosophy, sacred scriptures, the Tibetan language, and the teachings of Guru Padmasambhava under the guidance of senior monks. Their education extends far beyond reading religious texts. They are taught discipline, compassion, meditation, and the responsibilities of preserving one of Bhutan's oldest spiritual traditions. Meditation remains at the center of life inside Taktsang. Hidden within the monastery are several sacred caves, where generations of monks have spent days, weeks, and sometimes even months in complete solitude. According to Buddhist belief, some of these caves were once used by Guru Padmasambhava himself. Even today, they remain among the most sacred places inside the monastery, visited only with the deepest respect. Life at Taktsang has always remained remarkably simple. Meals are prepared within the monastery using traditional Bhutanese food. Rice, vegetables, butter tea, cheese, and seasonal produce form the foundation of the monks' daily diet. Every meal reflects the Buddhist principle of simplicity, where food is valued not as luxury, but as nourishment for both body and mind. Daily responsibilities are shared throughout the community, with monks helping prepare meals, clean temples, maintain prayer halls, and care for the monastery's ancient buildings. Despite standing high above the valley, Taktsang has never been completely isolated from the people below. For centuries, pilgrims have climbed these steep mountain trails to offer prayers, light butter lamps, and seek blessings. Many believe that completing the difficult journey is itself an act of devotion, making the pilgrimage as spiritually meaningful as reaching the monastery itself. Inside the temples, visitors discover beautifully painted murals, finely carved wooden altars, ancient statues of the Buddha and Guru Padmasambhava, and prayer halls filled with sacred texts, carefully preserved for generations. Every room reflects centuries of faith, craftsmanship, and devotion, reminding visitors that Taktsang is far more than a remarkable building on a cliff. It remains a living monastery. Every sunrise brings another day of prayer, study, meditation, and quiet discipline, continuing a tradition that has endured for centuries in one of the most extraordinary locations in the Himalayas. But once each year, this peaceful sanctuary welcomes thousands of pilgrims from across Bhutan, as the monastery becomes the center of one of the country's most important spiritual celebrations. For most of the year, Taktsang Monastery remains a place of silence and reflection. Its temples stay peaceful. Monks continue their daily prayers. Pilgrims quietly light butter lamps inside the sacred halls, and the mountain returns to the calm rhythm that has defined life here for centuries. Hundreds of pilgrims from across Bhutan begin the long climb toward Tiger's Nest, gathering to honor Guru Padmasambhava, the Buddhist master whose meditation transformed this mountain into one of the kingdom's holiest places. Families, elderly pilgrims, and young monks all follow the same ancient trail, believing that every step taken toward the monastery is itself an act of devotion. Unlike many Himalayan monasteries known for large public festivals, Taktsang's celebrations remain deeply spiritual. Prayer ceremonies continue inside the temple halls. Sacred scriptures are recited, butter lamps are offered, and monks perform rituals that have been preserved for generations. The atmosphere is not one of entertainment, but of quiet faith, where thousands gather to pray rather than simply to witness a celebration. Beyond these ceremonies, the monastery protects some of Bhutan's most important religious treasures. Hidden inside its temples are ancient statues, sacred relics, handwritten scriptures, and beautifully painted murals that have survived for centuries. The meditation caves associated with Guru Padmasambhava remain the monastery's most sacred places, visited by pilgrims who believe they still carry the spiritual presence of the great master. Yet preserving Taktsang has never been easy. Standing on the face of a vertical cliff, the monastery has always faced the forces of nature. Strong mountain winds, heavy monsoon rains, freezing winters, and the constant passage of time continue to test the strength of its ancient buildings. One of the greatest challenges came in 1998, when a devastating fire swept through large sections of the monastery. Several temples were destroyed, priceless paintings were damaged, and valuable religious artifacts were lost. For Bhutan, it was more than the loss of historic buildings. It was the loss of a sacred part of the nation's spiritual heritage. Soon after the disaster, an ambitious restoration project began. Using traditional Bhutanese architecture and craftsmanship, skilled artisans, monks, and conservation experts carefully rebuilt the damaged structures. Every wooden beam, painted wall, and golden rooftop was restored with extraordinary attention to detail, ensuring that the monastery preserved both its historical character and its spiritual significance. Today, visitors see a monastery that appears almost untouched by time. Yet behind its peaceful appearance lies a remarkable story of resilience, reminding us that even the most sacred places require constant care to survive. And as Bhutan enters the modern world, Taktsang continues to face a new challenge: how to protect one of the Himalayas' greatest spiritual treasures, while welcoming the growing number of people who come to experience its timeless beauty. For centuries, Taktsang Monastery remained protected by its isolation. The surrounding cliffs kept it hidden from the outside world, while the dense forests below made the journey long and difficult. Generation after generation, monks continued the same daily rhythm of prayer, meditation, and study, preserving traditions that had shaped Bhutanese Buddhism for hundreds of years. But even the most remote places cannot remain unchanged forever. Today, improved roads and better transportation have made Paro more accessible than ever before. Every year, thousands of visitors from around the world arrive in Bhutan with one destination at the top of their journey: Tiger's Nest. Some come to admire its extraordinary architecture. Others come to experience its spiritual atmosphere. Yet with growing popularity comes growing responsibility. The increasing number of visitors places constant pressure on the monastery's ancient buildings, narrow mountain trails, and centuries-old paintings. Protecting such a fragile site requires continuous care. Despite these challenges, the spirit of Taktsang remains remarkably unchanged. Every morning, monks still gather before sunrise. Ancient prayers continue to echo through the temple halls. Butter lamps still burn beneath centuries-old murals. Pilgrims continue the long climb through the forests, spinning prayer wheels and offering silent prayers before entering the monastery. And high above the Paro Valley, where clouds drift silently across the cliffs, Tiger's Nest continues to watch over the mountains just as it has for generations. Perhaps that is what makes Taktsang truly extraordinary. It is not simply a monastery built on the edge of a cliff. It is a living symbol of faith, perseverance, and devotion, a place where history, legend, and spirituality continue to exist together in perfect harmony. In a world that changes faster with every passing year, Taktsang reminds us that some places do not become extraordinary because they are easy to reach. They become extraordinary because generations of people dedicate their lives to protecting them. Our journey through Taktsang Monastery comes to an end, but countless hidden stories still remain scattered across the mountains of Bhutan and throughout the Himalayas. If you enjoyed exploring one of the world's most remarkable spiritual landmarks, don't forget to subscribe for more cinematic documentaries from the world's most isolated villages, ancient monasteries, and remote mountain communities. Because every hidden place has a story, and the next journey is waiting just beyond the mountains.